Hello! In this video I will be going over the issue that several gamers, both fanboy and casual, have been bringing up about Sony PlayStation directly ripping off Nintendo Wii's idea with the PlayStation Move. In this video I will use only facts, not opinions, to discredit this absurdly ignorant rumor. I will even go as far as to prove that it was in fact Nintendo that stole their ideas from Sony. So let's get started and jump right into it. First of all, to understand how different Nintendo Wii and PlayStation Move are, we will need to find out how they both work. First up, let's take a look at the Nintendo Wii. Several people are confused as to how the Nintendo Wii actually works. Let's start by taking a look at some rather old technology that has been around for a long time. The TV remote control. It is surprising that many people don't even know how a TV remote works. At its core, the TV remote is nothing more than an infrared light emitter. So how does infrared light tell the TV to do what you want it to? Simple. The remote is programmed to flash a certain way when you hit different buttons on it. Depending on the type of infrared flash that emits from the remote, determines what action the TV will take. The flash that volume up emits is very different from the flash that volume down emits. The infrared filtered sensor on the TV then picks these flashes up and transfers the signal into the desired action. Simple, right? Let's take a look now at how the Nintendo Wii remote and sensor bar work.
There's an infrared sensor used to detect and translate signals sent to it by the sensor bar. Oddly enough, the sensor bar doesn't actually sense anything. Instead, it has two sets of 5 infrared lights that the Wiimote uses to triangulate its location on the screen. Because of the infrared filter on the front of the Wiimote, all it can see are the 10 lights from the sensor bar. When the lights from the sensor bar move to the bottom of its view, it knows that the cursor should be at the top of the screen. When the lights are on the top of the view, the cursor is placed at the bottom of the screen. The same applies to left and right motion. By reversing the angle created by the lights, the remote can display a slanted cursor on the screen.
As you can see in the video, Nintendo has actually done something very simple. They have put the sensor in the remote control, and the light emitter on the TV. Doing this has allowed for the first form of a very crude TV pointer. By adding an accelerometer to the mix, they are then able to also track X, Y, and Z axis movements as well. The accelerometer is old technology that has been around forever and was obviously not made by Nintendo. I have included a link in the description for those of you curious about the history of the accelerometer. It is safe now to conclude that the Nintendo Wii, in its most basic form, is merely a reverse TV remote. Let's take a look now at how the PlayStation Move works. In this part, I will have to break down PlayStation's history, to be able to explain everything that is going into the efforts that Sony has made to create the Move. Let's begin with the PlayStation Eye. The PlayStation Eye is the heart and soul of what Sony conceived motion gaming to be. The Eye uses a VGA camera to find the player in its view path in order to display them on screen. Now, here's where things begin to get a bit tricky. In order to track a player's movements, the PlayStation Eye does a number of things. Let's go over the main feature that PlayStation Eye uses, that is very similar to Nintendo's Wii. Color tracking. In order to track a color, software has to be written to tell the VGA camera to have the user pick a color for it to track. Once a color is chosen, the camera then uses its filters and color spectrums to essentially black out everything else, except that color. Here's an image of what a filtered out color track looks like. Wow! Kinda looks like the image we saw in the Nintendo Wii description for how the Wiimote tracks the infrared light from the sensor bar, doesn't it? This technology was in development as early as 1999 in Sony's computer entertainment department. When the Eyetoy was released in 2004, it used this technology to do a number of things. One of the many problems with Sony's technology was room lighting. If the lighting was dim, the camera had a hard time tracking the player. To rectify this problem, Sony announced the PlayStation Move controller. At first glance, the Move controller has a very similar form factor to the Nintendo Wiimote. you can see where stupid ignorant people would start to insinuate that Sony was indeed stealing from Nintendo. Sony chose the controller form due to its contour feel and ergonomic grip. The form is only for comfort and has nothing to do with its functionality. What many people do not understand is that Sony had gone through many different design concepts when creating the PlayStation Move controller. Sony knew back in 2004 that they needed a controller of some sort to make the Eyetoy more flexible and precise for game developers to utilize it to the fullest potential. Here we can see several design concepts that were drawn up for the PlayStation Move controller. Obviously Sony had no intention of making anything that looked like a TV remote, but rather an extension of your hand. Finally, Sony settled on the Move's design, because it represents the most instinctual of feels. A handle is one of the most widely used shapes in today's world. From equipment, to toys, to vehicles, and sports. The handle is a very natural feeling form. This is the only reason that PlayStation chose the shape for the Move controller. If a glove would have worked, then I am sure they would have used that. The real important part here is the light bulb on top of the Move controller. By putting a constantly illuminated bulb on top of the Move controller, Sony has essentially solved the lighting issue that plagued the Eyetoy. So instead of tracking the infrared section of the color spectrum, the PlayStation Eye tracks all others. The best part about this is that the Move controller can change its color to best fit the lighting situation around it. If the camera notices a lot of reds in the background, then the PlayStation Eye will change the Move's color to blues or greens, to guarantee that the Eye is picking up the Move controller as best as it can. Ever have interference with the Wiimote before? That's because it can only track one spectrum of light. Candles and other infrared sources will disrupt a Wiimote the same way the TV remote jammers work. If you ever want to fuck with your friends that play a Wii, go look up how to build a TV jammer. Don't tell them I told you so, ha ha ha. In order to create a more precise experience, Sony has also added an accelerometer and gyroscope to the Move controller. This now allows the PlayStation Eye to get a one-to-one idea of where the player is in relation to the screen. Still, Nintendo fans insist that by putting an accelerometer into the Move controller, Sony is stealing from Nintendo. As stated before, the accelerometer is old technology. They are available for anyone to use in whatever application they choose. Cell phones, construction equipment, cars and several other gadgets use accelerometers in them. Also, PlayStation 3 uses an accelerometer in its controller, called the 6-axis. The PlayStation 3 was released before the Wii, and included a 6-axis controller at the console's launch. This not only covers Sony's asses, as a true innovator, but calls out Nintendo as a thieving company by simply only using an infrared light, and by inversing the camera and light source, Nintendo has successfully covered up their theft of Sony's technology and made it appear as though they truly invented motion gaming. Nintendo also cheaped out, and used an inferior infrared light for their system. This successfully kept the Nintendo Wii's production costs down and netted them the most money possible. There the truth is, in all of its colors. Wii was merely an expensive TV remote control that had a very short lifespan. Nintendo knew the Wii wouldn't last long in the gaming market. They gambled the risk that no one would figure their trickery out before they had already sold several million units. They were right. Now, however, today in 2010, you all know otherwise. As we all can see, the Nintendo Wii is already obsolete only 4 years into its life cycle. Nintendo fanboys will still play the Wii just because they love Nintendo's games. All other people that bought into the innovation hype and lies should consider selling their Wii and picking up the PlayStation Move. Not only will you get a real gaming experience that is far more precise, but you will support a company that actually invented the software. The only reason Eyetoy never caught on was because Sony never thought it would be worth spending a bunch of marketing money on. Consequently, they now know otherwise. I hope this has helped anyone that is serious about motion gaming realize who the true pioneers of the idea are. The comparison that I am trying to show here is very simple. The Eyetoy used the RGB part of the color spectrum to track a player's movements, The Wii uses the infrared part of the spectrum to do the same thing. Essentially, the Wii used a camera, or sensor in this case, to track color. This is clearly a total rip-off from Sony's technology. The only reason that Nintendo chose to use an infrared-style setup was to keep costs down and to try and differentiate themselves from Sony as much as possible, and to not look like total thieves. Had Nintendo not used a reverse TV remote setup, they would have been looking at some serious allegations and ridicule from companies and gamers alike. Nintendo is very good at using old technology to mimic other companies' ideas. Want some proof? Take a look at the new Nintendo 3DS coming out. It is boasting that it can show 3D images on a handheld device, and not need 3D glasses to do it. So how does Nintendo accomplish this? Simple. They took a shifting liquid crystal display and condensed it down to a portable size. The shifting LCD has been around for quite some time, and was definitely not invented by Nintendo. Another idea that was stolen and put into a device that claims to be revolutionary. Man. Nintendo really knows how to be clever fucking snakes. One notable problem with the shifting LCD is that extensive usage can result in extreme eye strain, and cause severe headaches, if stared upon for too long. People have already reported eye problems and headaches. Another disadvantage of the shifting LCD is that in order to see the full 3D illusion, one must look at it from the correct angle. It's too bad that you fanboys eat anything up that shows Mario's penis on the cover of the case. Fuck you Nintendo fanboys for spreading lies and inaccurate rumors around, discrediting Sony. Nintendo will always be at the bottom of hardware design and concept. They need to just get the fuck out of the hardware industry. Bye-bye Nintendo douchebags. Thanks for watching everyone.
Then there's the Miis you can make with your Wii, but they don't do anything as far as I can see. Then the press says,
Nintendo Wiis are selling like crack.
but that's because it's a cheap PS2 dressed up like a Mac. The VC games they sell are expensive as hell, and you probably finished them 10 years ago, but oh well. Third-party support, to say the least, it's a bummer. Ever heard of a good game on Wii that didn't have an Italian plumber?
It's a me, Mario.